I still remember the sharp crack of laughter that bounced off the vaulted ceilings, how every head turned to me, and how my cheeks burned hotter than the summer sun that had blazed just hours before. I, Isolde Hawthorne, standing at the edge of my own outrage, realized in that moment that my life had become an open stage, and I was its unwilling star. We had been invited to Jasper and Marin's riverside cottage for what I thought would be an evening of familiar comfort. Soft lantern glows, the clinking of crystal glasses, and the low hum of easy conversation. I'd spent the afternoon sliding into my navy sheath dress, one that hugged my curves just enough to feel confident without seeking attention, and carefully arranged my auburn waves into a loose chignon. In the mirror, I saw a woman who had built her world with precision, a successful interior designer, a devoted friend, and a loving wife to Ethan. Ethan. He was dapper in his charcoal tuxedo, tousled hair perfectly in place, a business leader whose wit charmed boardrooms and banquets alike. But that night, under the amber glow of Jasper's lanterns, he had become the catalyst for my public humiliation. I lingered by the antique sideboard, admiring the crystal whiskey decanter encrusted with mother-of-pearl inlays, Jasper's latest restoration project, and sipping the spiced pear cocktail Marin had crafted. The night was warm, the river's breeze drifting through open French doors, carrying with it the scent of honeysuckle and river sand. Laughter and music swirled around me, but when Ethan approached, I leaned in, ready to share a private smile. Instead, he cleared his throat. "Everyone, gather round," he announced, raising his glass so that his friends, some of whom I'd known since college, turned their full attention toward me. "I have a confession to make," Ethan continued, eyes gleaming with mischief. "When I met Isolde, I thought I'd married a demure, perfect little artist who spent her days quietly choosing wallpaper samples. But it turns out she's a fierce force of nature." His grin widened. "Remember the board meeting last week when she marched into the conference room at 7 a.m., coffee in hand, and bossed my entire team around until they ate breakfast off the floor?" A stifled giggle rippled through the group. My jaw tightened. I had, in fact, led the interior redesign team for his new headquarters in Chicago. But his theatrical retelling made me sound like an overzealous drill sergeant rather than a strategic visionary. "Is that true?" Marin asked, eyebrows raised. "Absolutely," he said, voice louder now as he paced before them. "So much for quiet evenings of couch cuddles and poetry readings." Laughter erupted, and all eyes turned toward me, expectant, amused. I forced a curt smile and took a step forward, hands pressed together to stop them from trembling. "At least I know how to get things done," I said, voice tight as crystal under pressure. "Bravo," Jasper called, raising his glass in sarcastic salute. The laughter crescendoed, and I felt the floor shift beneath me. Heat swelled across my face. In that charged silence between guffaws, my mind raced with indignation. Had I really married a man who saw my passion and drive as entertainment? Had our vows meant so little that, in front of our friends, he could reduce my accomplishments to a punchline? I could feel the fever of anger and embarrassment merging into something far stronger, a determination that burned brighter than humiliation. I lifted my chin and addressed the circle of amused faces. "You all know me," I began, carefully lowering my voice until it was a hushed rumble that caught their attention. "You know I've spent years building my design firm from the ground up, winning awards, earning respect in a male-dominated field." Ethan tried to interject, but I held up my hand. "This isn't a joke," I said, each word landing like a hammer striking steel. "Tonight you're going to see exactly why I never shrink away when someone underestimates me." A hush fell. Even the crickets outside seemed to pause. I paused to let my message sink in, surveying each face. Behind Jasper's curious tilt of the head, behind Marin's concerned frown, I saw something new in their eyes. Interest. Then I turned and walked away, my heels clicking deliberately on the polished floorboards. Walls stretched around me, doors led to unknown rooms. But I didn't hesitate. I had made my point. In the distance, laughter attempted to rise, but it caught in throats, stuttering. I reached the open doorway overlooking the river, the water reflecting the lanterns in rippling ribbons of gold and blue. My breath steadied. My heart pounded, but it was no longer in panic. It was in anticipation. I had no idea what came next, but I knew I would not be the same. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Dawn's first light crept through the gauzy curtains, painting the room in pale gold. I lay still, heavy with lingering heat from last night's storm of laughter and scorn. My mind replayed Ethan's mocking toast on a continuous loop, the jeers, the stifled giggles, the hush that fell when I dared to reclaim my voice. Even as the soft morning air brushed against my skin, my heart pounded with both shame and something fiercer. Resolve. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, toes finding the cool hardwood floor. The silence of our master suite felt uncanny, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Ethan was already gone. No good morning kiss, no apology note on the nightstand, just an empty coffee cup and the faint scent of cologne that seemed to mock me all the same. I climbed into the shower, letting water sluice away the doubts clinging to me like a second skin. Steam rose around me as memories coalesced into a single truth. I would not be defined by his cruelty. Not here. Not ever. With each pulse of warm water, I pledged to myself that this was the day everything changed. By the time I stepped into my studio, a sunlit loft above our townhouse, I was already drafting the blueprint of my comeback. Sketches tumbled across the drafting table. Bold patterns, avant-garde layouts, daring color clashes. Each line was a statement. I was more than a punchline. I was a force to be reckoned with. My phone buzzed. It was Maren. "Hey Isolde, can we talk? Jasper wants to clear the air after last night. Meet me at the gallery in an hour?" I stared at the screen. Jasper, the ever-diplomatic friend who'd organized the Riverside party. Maren's tone was gentle but insistent. I tapped a reply. Be there. The hour dragged on, each tick of the clock fueling my anticipation. I arranged fabric swatches by the window, practiced a calm smile in the floor-length mirror, and rehearsed the words I would say. No more tears. No more shrinking. At exactly 10 o'clock, I slipped into a tailored blazer and stepped into my heels. My reflection looked back at me. Eyes bright, shoulders squared, a woman reborn. The gallery was a modern loft, its white walls lined with Jasper's latest photographic exhibit, sweeping drone shots of deserted urban landscapes. The contrast between empty cityscapes and my own full heart felt poignant. Maren greeted me with a hug that squeezed away the last of my doubts. Her eyes shimmered with concern. "Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay," I said, though my voice wavered. "I'm ready." Jasper's approach was tentative, his usual jovial grin tinged with remorse. "Isolde, last night got out of hand. Ethan went too far. I owe you an apology." I met his gaze, my own steady. "Thank you, Jasper. That means a lot. But this is my story now. I'm writing the next chapter, and it won't include public humiliation." He nodded. "Whatever you need, I'm here." I felt the shift, a quiet solidarity that filled the room. I exhaled. Then let's get to work. I spent the afternoon immersed in design, sketching layouts for a philanthropic pop-up gallery, planning an exhibition of my firm's upcoming Civic Center project in downtown Chicago. As each concept came to life on paper, so did a vision of myself. Not a supporting player in my own life, but the lead. Late afternoon light bathed the gallery in a warm glow. Jasper's assistants buzzed around, setting up for an evening event. "You should stay for the reception," Jasper suggested. "It'll be good to get your mind off last night." I hesitated, then agreed. Later, sipping a glass of crisp Sauvignon Blanc, I watched the crowd drift through the space. Colleagues offered sympathetic smiles. Industry peers nodded respect as they admired Jasper's work. I lifted my glass, tasting victory in the subtle notes of citrus and oak. Then, from across the room, I spotted him. Ethan stood beneath a spotlight of recessed ceiling lamps, addressing a cluster of clients. His confident projection carried across the room. Handsome, composed, the charming CEO everyone admired. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with determination. I set down my glass, squared my shoulders, and walked toward him through the swirl of artists, critics, and patrons. Each step echoed with purpose. I could feel eyes on me, sensing the electricity between us. "Ethan, I said, pausing at his side. He turned, surprise flashing in his gaze. Isolde? Yes, I replied, voice clear. It's time we talked, for real this time. He swallowed, glancing at the expectant circle of onlookers. But I wouldn't be silenced. Not tonight. A hush fell over the crowd as I spoke, each word deliberate. Last night you embarrassed me in front of our friends. But it won't define us. I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to show you who I truly am. Ethan's jaw clenched. A ripple of anticipation passed through the audience. Phones appeared, cameras focused. In that charged moment, I reached into my clutch and pulled out an envelope. Read this, I said softly. He opened it, unfolding crisp paper. As he read, his confident facade faltered, then crumbled. The room held its breath. The hush that fell over the gallery was suffocating, a palpable force that pressed against my skin. Ethan's eyes darted from the letter in his trembling hands to my unwavering gaze. Heat curled in my cheeks, but my voice remained steady. You've spent years building your reputation as a visionary executive, I said, stepping closer so only he could hear. But while you were focused on your bonus targets, I was redefining what's possible for my clients and for myself. He swallowed hard, lips parting to speak, but I raised a finger to silence him. The envelope's wax seal glinted under the soft lights. Open it, I urged. He broke the seal, unfolding the single sheet of paper. His name was at the top, embossed in silver, Hawthorne and Faber Industries, followed by the words, Shareholder Notification, Chief Executive Officer Transition. The next line listed the effective date, 2 weeks from now. A ripple of gasps pulsed through the crowd. Phones clicked. A murmur spread. Did she just announce his ouster? Is that a takeover? In that moment, I realized the power of owning one's narrative. Ethan's face drained of color. This, I said softly, gesturing to the document, is the culmination of every late night, every sacrifice, every strategy session I've led with our board of investors. He raised his eyes, glistening. Isolde, what are you doing? I inhaled, letting the anticipation hang in the air. Taking back the story, I replied, because last night you tried to make a joke out of me. Tonight, I'm reminding everyone who I really am. The gallery erupted. Some cheered, others whispered. Marin rushed to my side, her proud smile reflecting the golden light. Ethan's voice cracked as he spoke into the stunned silence. I have questions. I nodded once, firmly. I'll answer them all, but not here. I gestured toward the terrace overlooking the river, where the town's lights shimmered like scattered stars. He stared at me, conflicted. Then, slowly, he offered his arm. Lead the way. I took it, heart pounding. Each step toward the terrace was a step into the unknown. Our relationship, our future, my new path of empowerment. On the terrace, the night air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine. The crowd murmured behind us. Tell me, I began. What were you thinking? Ethan closed his eyes, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't realize. I thought it would be funny. I paused, gaze steady on the ribbon of lights below. Funny, my life isn't your punchline. The words echoed softly. A silence stretched between us, loaded with years of shared memories and unspoken resentments. Then he spoke, voice trembling with remorse. I never meant to hurt you. I love you, Isolde, but I've been blind to your brilliance, to your strength. My chest tightened. Love, was that enough? Before I could answer, a phone rang sharply from inside the gallery. Jasper's assistant, no doubt. Ethan glanced back, torn. I took a steadying breath. Let's walk back, I said. Under the warm glow of string lights, we re-entered the gallery. Ladies and gentlemen, I called, raising my voice to command attention. Thank you for indulging us. I know you have questions. In 2 weeks, I'll be stepping into a new role as CEO of Hawthorne and Faber. But for now, let's celebrate the spirit of reinvention. Mine, Ethan's, and perhaps even ours. The crowd erupted into applause. Cameras flashed. As cheers filled the room, Ethan slipped his hand into mine. I squeezed it, not because I was certain where we stood, but because I was certain of myself. In that moment, I realized the journey ahead would be anything but easy. But it would be mine. This chapter continues the story of Isolde reclaiming her power and sets up the evolving dynamics between her and Ethan. Let me know when you're ready to proceed to the next chapter. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains like a benediction. I woke to the steady hum of my phone, emails, texts, notifications cascading in, each ping a testament to last night's seismic shift. My eyelashes fluttered open to the soft ivory ceiling of our bedroom, and for a moment, I hesitated. Could I still find comfort here, under the same roof as Ethan? Or had my momentum carried me beyond the point of return? I swung my legs out of bed, the wooden floor cool under my bare feet. My toes curled, grounding me. In the bathroom mirror, I studied my reflection, dark circles beneath eyes that had danced with adrenaline until dawn, lips curved in a thoughtful half-smile. This was the face of a woman who had reclaimed her destiny, and now she had to live into it. A knock sounded on the door. Ethan's soft voice followed. "Isolde, may I come in?" I nodded before remembering he couldn't see. "Come." He entered slowly, as if stepping onto shifting ground. He wore a crisp white shirt and gray slacks. Business casual, his armor of choice. His shoulders slumped, eyes fixed on the carpet. "Coffee?" I offered, reaching for my black ceramic mug on the vanity. It was dark roast, no sugar. My morning anchor. He accepted. "Thank you." His voice held an edge of humility new to me. I handed him the cup and settled on the closed toilet lid, crossing my legs. The weight of the moment settled around us. "I read your letter," he began, voice low. "And I saw the board's notice. You really did this. You orchestrated my transition." He paused, swirling the coffee. "Why?" I inhaled deeply. "Because I had to. You made me visible last night, and I won't fade back into the shadows. Not in our home, not in your company, not in my own life." His gaze lifted, meeting mine. "Is this about the gallery? The board? Or about us?" I pressed my lips together. The truth lay between us, tangled in ambition and hurt. "It's about everything." Silence stretched as the morning light deepened. "Then, what do you want?" His words trembled with vulnerability. I laid my hand on his, warm over bone. "I want partnership. I want respect. I want us to define what us means, on our own terms, equal partners in every sense." He swallowed. "I want that too." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "Tell me how to earn your respect again." I studied him, heart fluttering. "By listening," I said quietly. "By not making me the punchline at your next party. By celebrating my victories as fiercely as your own." He nodded. "I can do that." A flicker of hope lit his eyes. I released his hand, standing. "Then let's start with today." I brushed a lock of hair behind my ear. "I have a meeting with the Chicago Civic Center Committee at noon. I'd like you there, observing, learning, supporting. After that, we'll talk through our board presentation." He rose, relieved. "Anything else?" I let a small smile cross my face. "Be my husband." His relief was palpable. I turned away, exhaling as I moved through my morning routine. Today would be the real test. Integrating our personal reconciliation with my corporate ascendancy. The lines between boardroom and bedroom were blurrier than I'd imagined. At 8:30, I arrived at Hawthorne and Faber's Chicago office. The lobby buzzed with activity. Interns carrying portfolios, executives nodding greetings. I felt a steady surge of pride. This space, my designs, were as much a part of me as the blood in my veins. Ethan followed, trailing behind like a new recruit shadowing a general. I led him through the atrium to the executive suite on the top floor. The panoramic windows revealed a city waking to possibility. My heart fluttered at the view, an emblem of how far I'd come. Inside the suite, the board members assembled around the mahogany conference table. Jim Webster, my chief investor, stood to greet us. His usual stern expression softened when he saw me, a nod acknowledging our rallying moment from last night. "Ms. Hawthorne," he began, voice measured, "your momentum is impressive." "Thank you, Jim," I replied, taking my place at the head of the table. Ethan sat to my right, watching with a mixture of pride and lingering uncertainty. Over the next hour, I presented proposals, weaving in data, design mock-ups, community impact forecasts. Each slide clicked into view, renderings of the new civic center, vibrant community spaces, dynamic facades. I spoke with conviction, referencing stakeholder feedback and budget analyses. When I paused, the room brimmed with anticipation rather than polite nods. Ethan watched carefully, absorbing my style, how I engaged questions, deflected concerns, and steered conversations back to vision. I caught his gaze at one point. He gave me a subtle thumbs-up gesture. The board concluded with unanimous approval. Applause echoed off the lacquered walls. My cheeks bloomed with warmth. After the meeting, Jim leaned toward me. "You've exceeded expectations," he murmured. "The committee will endorse this tomorrow." I allowed myself a triumphant grin. "Thank you. I'll see it through." As we left the suite, Ethan slipped his arm around my waist. The gesture felt like a silent promise, but beneath the elation, a seed of doubt lingered. What would happen when the glare of public triumph faded? Could our fragile trust endure the inevitable challenges? And what of my own doubts? Would power dull my compassion, or steer me away from who I truly was? I carried those questions with me as I navigated the bustling streets back to the studio. The noise of honking horns and passing traffic reminded me that life moved at its own pace. I would have to keep pace. No, set the pace. That evening, I convened my design team in the loft. They greeted me with enthusiastic smiles, eager to dive into the Civic Center's next phase. "Team," I began, voice firm yet warm. "We're moving forward. But this isn't just another project. It's our statement to the city that change is possible when vision and collaboration unite." They nodded, eyes shining. "Let's create something unforgettable." We plunged into work, sketches unfolding across the table like vibrant tapestries of possibility. Late at night, after everyone left, I lingered in the empty loft. Moonlight draped the room in silver. My phone buzzed. It was Ethan. I opened the message, a simple, "Dinner tomorrow?" with a heart emoji. I smiled, typing back, "It's a date." Then I set the phone aside and looked out the window at the city's glimmering lights. Tomorrow held promise and uncertainty, but for the first time, I embraced both. Just then, a faint vibration pulsed from the pocket of my blazer. I reached for it, reading the subject line of an email. "Urgent. Investor meeting stormwater concerns." My pulse quickened. Stormwater concerns? I'd accounted for every variable in our designs, but this was new. My breath caught. The city relied on this center. If there was a flaw, it could derail everything. I stared at the screen, determination flaring. We needed a solution. Fast. The urgent email blinked in my inbox like a neon warning. "Stormwater concerns. Review required by Monday." My heart skipped. We had meticulously planned rain gardens, pervious pavements, detention basins, all calculated to the last cubic foot per second. How had we overlooked this? I snapped my laptop shut and scanned my team's messages. None had flagged any new data. I took a deep breath, recalling the night's success and Ethan's supportive text, the promise of dinner tomorrow. But there was no time for celebration. I tapped my phone. "Team, assemble in 15 minutes. Crisis meeting." Within an hour, my small conference room buzzed with designers, engineers, and hydrology consultants. I stood at the whiteboard, markers in hand. "Stormwater regulations have changed since we submitted our proposal," I began, tracing the municipal memo details. "Effective last week, a 20% increase in runoff mitigation requirements. Our design is 15% short." Gasps filled the room. I met every gaze. We fix this. Together. I divided the group. Lily to rerun the BIM model with updated precipitation curves, Marco to redesign the detention basin footprint, and Raj to liaise with city officials for potential variances. As the hours ticked by, sketches and spreadsheets piled up. My voice guided them. Embrace the challenge. This center will stand as a model of resilience. At the midpoint of our all-hands discussion, I paused, letting the weight of the work settle. The team leaned in, ready for their leader. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. Their smiles renewed my spirit, and we dove back into revision. Lily called out new runoff curves. Marco sketched an expanded basin grid. Raj reported preliminary approval for accelerated review. Together, we carved a path forward. By late afternoon, a revised proposal lay ready, a seamless integration of new detention ponds disguised as sculptural landforms, rain gardens doubling as public art. The design not only met regulations, it elevated the Civic Center's identity. I forwarded the package to Jim and the committee, attaching a cover memo, Stormwater Compliance Addendum. My pulse raced as I hit send. It was time to see if our solution held. Exhausted, but exhilarated, I left the office, only to find Ethan waiting in the lobby. He offered his arm without a word. We rode down in silence, the elevator's soft hum echoing our shared anticipation. Outside, dusk painted the skyline in rose and amber. He stopped, turning to face me. How did it go? I unfolded my arms. We fixed it. We met the new requirements and improved the design. Pride and relief mingled in my chest. It's back on track. His smile was slow, radiant. You're incredible. I kissed his cheek. I learned from the best. He nodded, then studied my expression. I have news. Something I've been working on while you were redesigning a city. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My stomach fluttered. He opened it to reveal a delicate bracelet. A fine chain of interlocking links, each engraved with a single word. Strength, honesty, trust. A final link, blank, beckoned. It's for you, he said, to remind you of what you deserve and what we can build together. Tears caught in my throat. The gesture was as thoughtful as any design feature I'd ever conceived. I lifted the bracelet, running my finger over the blank link. What goes here? He swallowed. Your choice. And then, as the city lights flickered on around us, a distant siren pierced the twilight. My phone vibrated urgently. A text from Jim. Board requests an emergency teleconference. Tonight. My breath caught. I looked at Ethan, whose face mirrored my shock. We have to go back in, I said, heart pounding. He took my hand. Let's face it together. The siren's wail faded into the night, but its echo remained in my veins. What new storm had we summoned? I barely remembered the drive back to the office. Ethan's hand gripping mine in the passenger seat, the city lights a blur through rain-spattered windows, my mind racing ahead to the teleconference that awaited us. The grand lobby of Hawthorne and Faber was deserted at this hour, the polished marble floors reflecting the glow of the emergency exit sign. I led Ethan up to the executive suite, heart thrumming like a war drum. Inside, board members clustered around the long conference table, screens already flickering with faces in distant time zones. Jim Webster sat at the head, his stern face softened by concern. Erica Chong's brow furrowed as she tapped notes on her tablet. Even Marco Diaz's jovial demeanor had vanished, replaced by professional gravity. I stepped to the front, adjusting my blazer. Thank you for convening on such short notice, I began, voice strong despite the tension that prickled at my skin. I understand the stormwater compliance issue has escalated. Let's address it head-on. Jim nodded. We received new data this evening. The county's floodplain model has been revised. Your design must now withstand a 100-year storm event rather than 50. That's a 30% increase over current specifications. My stomach convulsed. Understood. May I have a moment with my team? I asked, glancing at Lily and Raj, who already had their models up on the central monitor. Erica sighed. Time is not on our side. The planning permit expires tomorrow morning. I closed my eyes briefly, inhaling the sterile air. Then I squared my shoulders. Let's see how much of the design can be adapted tonight. I tapped the screen. Lily's 3D runoff simulation pulsed into view. Over the next hour, we worked in feverish collaboration, rerouting undercroft channels, recalibrating green roof retention coefficients, integrating underground cisterns beneath the public plaza. Ethan hovered at the side, clipboard in hand, offering data points from the investor reports. As the revised renderings updated in real time, I narrated, "These cistern modules double as seating pods. They'll blend seamlessly with the plaza's urban landscape. The expanded rain gardens along the east facade now channel runoff into the detention system." My words tumbled out in a rhythmic chant against the hum of processors. Marco leaned in. "The detention basin footprint will overlap with the public amphitheater zone unless we cantilever the promenade above." He sketched a quick section view on the whiteboard. "I like it," I said. "Move forward with that, and coordinate with structural." Erica checked her tablet. "If we can deliver these plans in 2 hours, I can submit them before midnight." Her voice carried hope. I shared a glance with Ethan. His resolute nod bolstered my focus. "Let's aim for 90 minutes, I said, voice razor sharp. Around us, the team plunged into action. Through the glass walls, I saw board members exchange impressed looks. Time blurred until finally, Lily announced, "All models updated. Simulations pass for the 100-year event with 10% buffer." Relief rippled through the room. I took a breath. "Submit the permit documentation, now." Erica tapped the screen, sending files to the county portal. Silence descended, broken only by the minute clicking of Grant Thornton's auditor, one of the remote participants, who spoke up. "Ms. Hawthorne, remarkable work. The new design meets regulatory and aesthetic goals. We'll approve the amendment." Applause echoed from scattered camera feeds. I exhaled, tension draining. But before I could smile, Jim looked at me gravely. "There's one more matter. A security breach in our digital archives. Sensitive client data may have been compromised." A chill ran down my spine. "Details?" He tapped his laptop. "Our IT team detected unauthorized access to archived proposals. Some of your early conceptual boards were leaked online. Uncredited." My breath caught. The night's work, the city's future, all threatened by invisible intruders. Ethan reached for my hand, voice quiet but urgent. "We're in this together." I met his gaze, determination flaring. "Then let's find out who's taken my story, and why." Under the cold blue glow of the conference room monitors, I felt the weight of every late-night strategy session press on my shoulders. The board's congratulations on the amended permit had barely settled when the threat of leaked designs had upended any sense of triumph. I rose from the sleek leather chair, my blazer snagging on the table's edge, and addressed the gathered executives and IT specialists. "Thank you all for staying," I began, drawing a slow breath. "We've protected the city's future, and now we need to protect our intellectual property. Who among you can walk me through the breach timeline?" Raj, my liaison to the city officials, cleared his throat. He tapped on his tablet, bringing up an audit log on the main screen. At 8:03 p.m., an external IP address initiated a query against our secure archive. The attacker used a routed chain through 3 proxy servers, likely overseas. By 8:15 p.m., sensitive proposal files were accessed and exfiltrated. Engineers and analysts murmured. I felt a cold burn in my chest. Betrayal, frustration, the sting of vulnerability. "Do we have an identity?" I asked, voice taut. Lily, head of security architecture, shook her head. "The proxies obfuscate the origin. But based on the file hash signatures, the leak matches files handed to our consultant, Brandt Solutions, last month." My pulse quickened. Brandt had been recommended by Ethan's board contact, a third-party consulting firm tasked with reviewing accessibility features for the Civic Center's design. Could the leak have come from them? I exchanged a glance with Ethan, seated to my right, his jaw clenched in concern. He pushed himself up, stepping forward. Isolde, if it helps, I can bring in our corporate counsel. This is a legal matter now. I appreciated his support, but I needed answers fast. Not yet. Let's gather facts first. I turned back to the room. Lily, can we lock down the archive and restore permissions to pre-breach status? Already done, she replied. We've quarantined the compromised credentials and rotated keys. No further access will be possible from that vector. Good. I tapped a pen against my palm. Next, project audit. Marco, Raj, schedule a full review of every file we shared externally. Identify anomalies. He nodded, already ticking items on his tablet. The room buzzed with urgency. As I stepped toward the door, Ethan intercepted me. In the hallway's stark fluorescent light, he took my hand. Let me handle Brandt Solutions. I know their CEO. I met his gaze, gratitude and hesitation swirling. Be careful. I need you by my side for the design review tomorrow. He nodded, pressing a kiss to my temple. Go home for a rest. I've got this. I hesitated but trusted him. At 10 that night, I left the office, my heels clicking on the marble that once symbolized achievement, now echoing the fragility beneath. Arriving home, I expected the empty silence of midnight, but instead found Maren waiting in the living room. Her brows were etched with worry, dark waves of hair tumbling past her shoulders. Isolde, she exclaimed, rushing forward to envelop me in a hug. I heard about the breach. How are you holding up? I sank onto the plush sofa, exhaustion seeping into every bone. We've contained it, but someone has access to our early concepts. I need to know why. Maren sat beside me, her presence a balm. You're not alone. You have legal teams, forensics experts. I know. I leaned back, closing my eyes. The memory of the files, each sketch, each render, stolen before I could showcase them on my terms, pierced me. Maren's voice softened. Promise me you'll let me help. I offered a wan smile. I promise. We sat in companionable silence, punctuated by the distant hum of the city at rest. But my mind raced ahead to tomorrow's review meeting with the city planning board. They'd need absolute assurance of our design's integrity. Dawn arrived too quickly. I woke to the chime of my phone, an encrypted message from Ethan. Meeting scheduled. Sending details. I opened it to see a video link with Brandt Solutions CEO Victor Brandt, scheduled for 9 a.m. At 8, I arrived at the office again, approaching the day's battle with less certainty than before. Lily met me at the door, handing over a printed report. We traced the file signature to a test server in Geneva. It's an anonymous dump site with ties to several corporate espionage rings. My heart sank. The leak was more than a competitor's petty act. It was an organized assault on our vision. I squared my shoulders. Set up the video link in conference room B. Ethan and I will be on by 9. Bring in corporate counsel and lock down communications. No one speaks publicly about this. As I strode down the corridor, the world felt narrower, the stakes higher. Each step echoed a truth I'd embraced months earlier. Power demanded vigilance. And now, more than ever, I would fight to control my narrative. At 9 a.m., the screen flickered to life. Victor Brandt appeared, impeccably dressed, the polished arrogance of a man accustomed to others' deference. Ms. Hawthorne, he began smoothly, voice cultured. I understand there's been an unfortunate misunderstanding. I studied his expression. The thin smile didn't meet his eyes. It's no misunderstanding, Mr. Brandt. Files from our archive appeared online last night. Your firm had access to those files. He raised a gloved hand. We provided insights on ADA compliance. Nothing more. Our agreement prohibits redistribution. I let the silence stretch. Finally, I pressed on. Your firm's network was traced to the breach. Are you aware of any leaks from within your organization? His posture stiffened. We conduct thorough security protocols, but if one of my consultants acted independently, we will investigate. Yet, I remind you, Hawthorne and Faber also shares our name in the confidentiality clause. I straightened, heart pounding. Then I suggest you search your own corridors before pointing fingers. Victor's lips curled into a polite smirk. Of course, we'll cooperate fully. But if any reputation is harmed, be mindful of the legal repercussions. The link ended abruptly, leaving us in a void of suspicion and unspoken threats. Ethan crossed to me. Will you survive a legal battle? I inhaled, feeling the familiar fire of conviction. I'll survive, and I'll expose the truth. As we shut down the call, I realized the fight wasn't just for my designs, but for every woman who dared to step into power and refused to let her story be stolen. Outside the window, clouds gathered on the horizon. A storm was coming, one I would have to weather on my own terms. The storm broke at midnight. Torrential rain pounded the rooftop terrace like a million drumming hands. Lightning unveiled the city skyline in jagged bursts, and thunder rolled through the corridors of our home as if heralding the chaos within. I stood at the window, tracing the rivulets as they carved paths down the glass, hearts synchronizing with the storm's unrest. It had been 2 days since the confrontation with Victor Brandt. 2 days of sleepless nights spent poring over forensic logs, cross-referencing proxy nodes with our network security feeds, and conducting discreet interviews with Brandt Solutions' UK office under the guise of compliance follow-up. The trail had gone cold in Geneva, then resurged in Zurich, but each lead dissolved into another proxy chain. I realized then that corporate espionage was a hydra. Decapitate one head, and 2 more sprouted. I turned from the window as my phone buzzed, Ethan's name illuminating the screen. His message was terse. Call me now. Urgent. I tapped the green icon and brought the phone to my ear. Isolde. I've got a situation, Ethan said, voice low and urgent. An investor just called. They saw some of our leaked visuals online, unbranded, but recognizable. They're demanding answers. Some are pulling funding unless we can prove the designs are authentic and ours. My pulse quickened. Have them direct everything to legal and PR. I'll handle the authenticity proof. But we need a unifying narrative, our story. Collect every dated sketch, every email thread. Assemble a timeline showing our creative evolution. On it, he replied. I'll gather it all. Meet me in the war room in 20. I hung up and grabbed my laptop, sprinting through the halls to our makeshift command center, the loft studio where the previous week's all-nighters had solved the stormwater crisis. Now it became the nerve center for a different kind of battle. My team gathered around the large oak table, rain drumming overhead. Lily had her tablet open to network topology schematics. Marco stood by the whiteboard, where a timeline of design milestones sprawled in different colored markers. Raj sifted through stacks of printed emails. We need absolute clarity on provenance, I said, placing a fresh cup of coffee before each of them. Our credibility hinges on airtight documentation. Let's break this down. 1. Early sketches. **** Marco. Photograph every dated sketch in the archives. High resolution. Every watermark and margin note matters. 2. Correspondence threads. **** Raj. Compile every email exchange with clients, contractors, and consultants that traces the evolution of these designs. Include timestamps. 3. Nines Booze meeting minutes. **** Lily. Pull calendar notes, VoIP logs, and confirm when each design review meeting took place. Cross-check with video archives. Time is of the essence. By dawn we present to the investors. Understood? They nodded, assembling like soldiers before a campaign. The clock ticked relentlessly as flash drives were encrypted, metadata verified, and PDF portfolios compiled. Outside, the storm intensified. A deafening clap of thunder shook the building as if echoing the turmoil in my mind. I took a moment to breathe, recalling Ethan's faith in me, his unwavering belief when everyone else had doubts. I realized the fight wasn't just for our company. It was for every woman who had carved her name into a male-dominated industry and refused to let it be erased. At 4 a.m., the document packet was complete. Over 500 pages of sketches, emails, meeting logs, and authenticated metadata. I uploaded the dossier to our secure investor portal with a single keystroke, sending our story unassailable and raw. Done, I announced to the room. Voice hoarse. Now we wait. As we gathered our things, the overhead lights flickered, another bolt of lightning, and plunged us into darkness. The rain's roar filled my ears. A collective gasp rose. Seconds later, emergency generators kicked in, casting the studio in the dim glow of backup lights. A hush settled. Then my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I answered tentatively. "This is Isolde Hawthorne." A deep voice responded. "You've made a bold play, Miss Hawthorne, but be warned. Some truths are dangerous. Stop digging, or everything you've built will be washed away." The line went dead. I stood in the pale emergency light, rain cascading beyond the windows. My stomach clenched, adrenaline surging. Storm threats, both meteorological and man-made, were testing me at every turn. And yet I wouldn't back down, because this was my story, and I was writing every line. I woke to the sharp trill of my phone at 6:30, heart hammering before I even opened my eyes. The memory of last night's anonymous threat pressed against my temples as I reached for the device. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, followed by a message. "Emergency meeting at 8. Investors in crisis room." I slipped out of bed, the sheets slipping from my shoulders, and moved through our apartment in a haze. The pre-dawn light cast long shadows across the living room. Mugs and plates from the previous evening's strategy session dotted the coffee table, evidence that our battle would not pause even at home. In the kitchen, I poured black coffee into a to-go cup and read the pre-meeting packet Ethan had left on the counter. Investor reactions to the leaked visuals had escalated overnight. Some threatened to withdraw completely. Others demanded apology letters from Brandt Solutions, and a few wanted to postpone funding until a full forensic audit could be completed. I shook off the exhaustion. This was the moment to demonstrate leadership under fire. At 8, I arrived at the office, rain still spattering the windows. The crisis room door stood open, its glass revealing a half-circle of whiteboards covered in hand-drawn diagrams, timelines, and bullet points in red marker. Lily, Marco, and Raj were already there, reviewing the documentation we'd submitted. Ethan greeted me with a solemn nod. "They've asked me to present first," he said. "Then they want you to reassure them." I inhaled, steadying myself. "Let's do this together." Board members filed in, their faces a grim landscape of concern. Jim Webster tapped his pen. "We appreciate your quick actions, but these continued leaks are unacceptable. We need reassurance. Now." Ethan rose. His normally confident tone wavered slightly, but he pressed on. "These designs are the work of Hawthorne and Faber. We've presented a dossier of time-stamped sketches, correspondence, and metadata. We stand by our intellectual property." He stepped aside and all eyes turned to me. Silence roared in my ears. I stood, voice measured. "Ladies and gentlemen, I understand the gravity of your concerns, but let me share a different perspective. This is not just about lines on paper. It's about the potential of a community center to transform lives. Families gathering, children learning, seniors finding connection. Every curve, every color, every material choice is grounded in empathy and purpose." I paced slowly, allowing my words to settle. Yes, there's a breach, but our transparency, our willingness to document and defend our work, is a testament to our integrity. We will not hide behind contracts or litigation. We will demonstrate through action and expertise that this vision is ours. A board member interjected, "But what about the threat? This anonymous warning? How can we ensure our partnership isn't further jeopardized?" I met his gaze evenly. "I've already dispatched a private investigator, and am coordinating with cybersecurity specialists. We will find the source and hold those responsible accountable. Meanwhile, our project timeline remains on track. We have regulatory approval, we have a robust design, and we have the community's trust." Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. The board chair leaned forward. "Ms. Hawthorne, your confidence is reassuring, but we need concrete next steps." I signaled to Lily, who projected our action plan: phased forensic audits, liaison with legal counsel, enhanced security protocols, and a timeline for revealing progress to investors and the public. Each phase bore clear deadlines and responsible parties. At the end of this week, I concluded, we will host a public unveiling of the finalized designs, unbranded, and invite community feedback in real time. We will turn transparency into our greatest strength. Silence fell. Then applause broke out. First tentative, then unanimous. Investors nodded, pens wrote new notes. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. Relief and pride surged through me. Yet as I gathered my notes, a junior analyst hurried in, her face pale. She handed me a printout. One of our earliest concept boards, still bearing pencil marks and coffee stains, had appeared on an underground design blog under someone else's name. My breath caught. The room shifted. Investors leaned forward. And in that charged moment, I realized the battle for my story was far from over. A single sheet of glossy print trembled in my hand. Its edges curled from hurried extraction. It bore one of my earliest concept boards, coffee-stained margin notes scribbled in my own hand, now credited to an unknown blogger called Design Oracle. My chest tightened as I stared at the familiar sketches. The crescent-shaped amphitheater nestled against rain gardens, the articulated glass facade, the community plaza enlivened by sculptural benches. Every stroke, every shade, every annotation, my vision, stolen and repackaged, silence engulfed the crisis room. Investors leaned forward, their eyes flicking from the copy in my hand to my face. Ethan squeezed my thigh under the table. His calm steadied me. I took a slow breath. This, I began, laying the print on the table, is evidence that the breach extends deeper than we thought. Our concept sketches, which were never shared beyond Brant Solutions and our board, have surfaced on external platforms. A hush fell. Jim Webster's brow furrowed. Questions? I asked, voice clear. Who is this Design Oracle? One board member demanded. Why would they publish your work? Before panic could surge, I raised a hand. That's what we intend to find out. But here's what we know. The file's metadata shows an earlier timestamp than the Brant breach, meaning the leak likely occurred before we even uploaded it to their servers. Ethan leaned into the conversation. Our forensics traced a copy to an internal server, one associated with our marketing vendor, Axis Publishing. They had limited access for promotional renderings. I offered the floor to Raj. Raj? He stood, face determined. Yes, our logs show Axis's export session occurred 2 nights ago, the same window when the first unbranded images appeared on the blog. Their credentials were used via a compromised workstation. So it wasn't Brant Solutions, the board chair said, relief softening his features. It was Axis. Correct, I confirmed. We've suspended their access and notified legal. We're initiating an emergency audit of their systems and demanding full cooperation. Ethan whispered, I'll handle Axis's CEO after this. I nodded, returning focus to the investors. Now our next step. Reclaim public narrative. We will post the correct concepts, branded, time-stamped, and accompanied by a commentary on the design evolution, across our official channels. We'll host a live webinar showcasing the drawing process, the community vision sessions, and the technical rigor behind every line. A board member asked, Will that satisfy the community and quell speculation? I met his gaze. It will demonstrate transparency and reaffirm authenticity. We turn their doubt into engagement. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Then let's proceed, the chair said. I want the press release by noon and the webinar scheduled this week. Relief washed through me, but I knew the storm was far from over. The lawsuit filings would come, the media spin, the competitor whispers. Still, I felt a surge of purpose. This was not just about protecting our designs, but about controlling the story of our work. We left the crisis room with new directives, legal drafts to review, PR teams to assemble, webinar outlines to finalize. Ethan offered his arm as we exited. You were extraordinary, he murmured. I exhaled, leaning into him. We're just getting started. That evening, back at home, the loft buzzed with anticipation. Lily adjusted camera angles for the webinar. Marco rehearsed behind-the-scenes footage, and Raj prepared Quande notes. I sat at my drafting desk, pen in hand, sketching the storyboard for the live presentation. the arc from initial pencil scratch to finished render. My phone buzzed. A news alert from a major design magazine. The headline read, "Civic Center Concepts Surface Online. Official sources clarify authorship." I tapped the article. It quoted our team's statements, linked to our site, and credited Isolde Hawthorne unequivocally. Comments beneath ranged from admiration to relief. A small smile curved my lips. Ethan hovered behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. "You just turned a crisis into an opportunity." I leaned back into him. Every story has its trials. It's how we tell it that defines us. As night deepened, I reflected on the journey. From that first public humiliation at Jasper's party to leading a company and reclaiming my narrative, under fire. The road ahead would wind through boardrooms and courtroom halls alike, but I felt ready. I shut my eyes, envisioning the webinar stage, my voice steady as I launched into my journey, sketches unfurling on the screen, a global audience witnessing the power of transparency, resilience, and self-authorship. And as thunder echoed in the distance, remnants of yesterday's storm, I knew this was only the prologue to our greatest chapter yet. The morning light streamed into the living room as I sipped my espresso, the rich aroma anchoring me to the present. The previous night's webinar had been a triumph. Thousands of live viewers tuned in, questions streamed in faster than we could refresh the feed, and the comments flooded with praise for transparency. But there was no time to savor victory. My phone vibrated, the unmistakable ping of the first of several messages I knew would be waiting. Legal briefs, media requests, investor confirmations. I set the cup down and opened a folder labeled ***, litigation prep, *** on my laptop. The Access Publishing lawsuit had arrived at dawn. They claimed breach of contract, defamation, damages for lost revenue. Their filing demanded arbitration and an immediate freeze on project assets. I scrolled through the pages of legalese, each paragraph a volley fired across the courtroom battleground. They intended to stall, to weaken our momentum. Ethan must have anticipated my reaction. Moments later, he entered the room carrying 2 plates of scrambled eggs and wrapped sausage links. His presence, steady and grounded, was like a lifeline. "Eggs?" he offered, setting the plate before me. "Thank you," I murmured, turning back to the filing. "Access wants to stop us in our tracks." He nodded, pouring us both juice. "I've called our counsel. They're drafting our response. They'll also file a countersuit for breach and intentional interference. I swallowed a bite of eggs, feeling the warmth settle in my chest. Legal warfare was a far cry from designing civic centers, but I'd learned that leadership required versatility. "Good. We'll show them that we play to win." He brushed a kiss against my temple. "Then let's go win." By 9, we were back at the office. The energy in the loft studio crackled with purpose. Lily compiled logs of every failed Access login attempt, every revoked credential. Marco refined animations showing the correct design timeline. Raj coordinated with our PR team to emphasize the civic impact of delays. I briefed our legal team on the latest developments, ensuring every piece of evidence was cross-referenced. Midday found me in a glass-walled conference room with the arbitration panel, 3 independent arbitrators, seated behind a long oak table, flanked by our opposing counsel. I stood at the head, presenting a slide deck that contrasted our documented design evolution with Access's narrow access privileges. Each slide underscored the improbability of their claims. An opposing lawyer attempted to object. The design elements were publicly available once posted online, meaning our client had a right to use them for promotional purposes. I cleared my throat, voice firm. Those images lacked attribution, context, and authenticity. More importantly, Access's promotional rights ended when they exfiltrated our proprietary files. They have no claim to content that they illicitly obtained. My gaze swept the panel. I trust the evidence speaks for itself. The arbitrators exchanged glances. I felt the weight of their scrutiny, then the subtle nods that signaled understanding. We left the hearing with a provisional ruling in our favor, a temporary injunction preventing Access from further distribution of our materials, pending the final decision. It wasn't a verdict, but it was enough to keep the project moving and send a message that we would not be silent. As I exited the building, sunlight warmed my face for the first time in days. The city's heartbeat pulsed around me. Construction crews, buskers, midday crowds spilling coffee onto sidewalks, and I felt alive with possibility. My next stop was the community outreach event on the plaza site, the very ground where the Civic Center would rise. Local residents, community leaders, and press gathered under a canopy of pop-up tents. Tables displayed scale models, interactive VR stations, and feedback boards. I joined Marin at the front, where she held a microphone. "Thank you, everyone, for coming," she said, voice welcoming. Isolde Hawthorne has prepared a new interactive demonstration of the Civic Center design, and she wants to hear your thoughts. I stepped forward, heart coursing. I activated the VR station, inviting attendees to don headsets and wander virtual streets, plazas, and gardens. Nearby, my team guided seniors using tactile models of ramps and seating pods, ensuring ADA compliance felt intuitive, empathetic. A young mother approached, holding her daughter's hand. "We love the playground area," she said, pointing at the interactive map. "We just hope it's safe, shaded, and inclusive." I knelt beside her, adjusting her daughter's VR goggles. "Absolutely. The playground includes sensory zones, shaded canopies shaped like sails, and surfaces that cushion falls. We've worked with child development specialists to ensure both safety and stimulation." The child giggled as she tapped virtual benches that morphed into slides at the touch of a button. Behind me, reporters scribbled notes. Cameras flashed. But the real impact was in the smiles around me. Laughter, nods of approval, hand-sketching suggestions on whiteboards. 2 hours later, as the event wound down, I stood at the edge of the gravel lot gazing at the open sky. Tomorrow, we'd return to the arbitration hearing to await the final ruling. The legal battle would drag on, but here on this site, this shared ground of dreams and designs, I felt the community's support like an undercurrent beneath my feet. I turned to Ethan, who approached with 2 cups of coffee. Lifelines once again. He handed me one. "Look at this," he said, gesturing at the tents. "This is why we fight." I inhaled the warm steam, eyes bright. "Exactly." He slipped his arm around my waist, and together, we watched as families discovered virtual gardens and elders traced Braille maps. In that moment, I realized that success wasn't defined by injunctions or lawsuits, but by the hearts we touched and the futures we shaped. As dusk fell, I made a silent vow to build more than structures, to build trust, inspire hope, and prove that even when your story is nearly stolen, you can reclaim it, rewrite it, and use it to uplift an entire community. Tomorrow, the final chapter of this legal saga would be penned. But tonight, my story belonged to the people. The dawn light found me at my drafting desk, hands stained with ink and my mind already racing through an endless to-do list. Yesterday's community event had been a triumph, but the final arbitration hearing loomed, and with it, the possibility of full clearance or crippling injunction. I took a deep breath, recalling Ethan's steady gaze as we exited the station. "No matter what, we face it together." I met him in the conference room at 8, where our legal counsel and PR director were waiting with coffee in hand. The air was thick with anticipation. "Everything is set for this afternoon," Sarah, our lead counsel, said, voice calm and measured. "The arbitral panel will render their final decision at 2 p.m. Eastern. If they rule in our favor, Access's claims are permanently barred, and we retain all rights. If not..." She trailed off, letting the unspoken consequences hang in the air. I nodded, equating her unspoken warning with months of halted progress, legal fees mounting by the hour, and a community project in limbo. "What about the press?" I asked. Greg, our PR director, leaned forward. "We have 2 options. An immediate statement if the ruling is positive, outlining the victory and next steps, or a holding statement expressing respect for the process and reassuring stakeholders we remain committed, regardless of outcome." I closed my eyes, picturing the thousands of residents who had invested their time and hopes in this project. Let's prepare both. I want a message of gratitude and resilience ready to go. I met Ethan's eyes. And I want us there together when it happens. He squeezed my hand. You've got it. The hours dragged on. I checked and rechecked our media materials, rehearsed my opening remarks, and fine-tuned the community update slides. When the clock struck 1, I felt the familiar flutter of nerves, like the first day of school, only the stakes were immeasurable. At 2 p.m., we convened in the sleek arbitration suite, a glass-walled room overlooking the city. Sunlight poured in, glittering off polished surfaces. The panel members, 3 respected arbitrators, sat behind a raised dais, their faces inscrutable. Ms. Hawthorne, the lead arbitrator spoke, voice even. We have reviewed all evidence, heard your testimony and the respondents, and deliberated accordingly. It is the panel's unanimous decision that Access Publishing's claims are without merit. The injunction is dissolved, and Hawthorne and Faber retains full rights to its intellectual property. Furthermore, Access is ordered to cover your legal costs. Relief crashed through me like a wave. I turned to Ethan, eyes shining, and he enveloped me in a hug, his whispered congratulations warming me more than any sunbeam. I stood before the panel, voice shaking with gratitude. Thank you. This victory belongs not just to our firm, but to every voice who believed in community-driven design. The room erupted into polite applause. Cameras flashed as our PR team snapped photos for immediate release. We raced back to the studio where Greg prepared the press statement. Within minutes, a tweet from my official account announced, "Victory in arbitration, Access Publishing's claims dismissed. Civic Center project cleared to proceed." The accompanying thread linked to a heartfelt video message from me and highlighted the community's role in sustaining our vision. Messages of support poured in, city officials, local news outlets, neighbors, even competitors offering grudging congratulations. It felt like the turning point we'd fought for, but as dusk settled, the victory echelon gave way to a fresh crisis. My phone buzzed with an alert from the city planning portal. Stop work order issued. Environmental investigation required. My heart seized. The body of the message read, "During routine soil testing on the Civic Center site, the Department of Environmental Protection identified traces of a protected wetland habitat crossing the southern quadrant. Construction and design approvals are suspended pending ecological impact assessment. Asterisk. Poor bid. I stared at the words, disbelief and fury warring within me. Protected wetlands? Our environmental studies had passed municipal review weeks ago. I called Ethan, who rushed over to the loft. Within 20 minutes, we convened my team. Lily's eyes widened at the news. Marco's jaw clenched. Raj's pen tapped urgently against his notes. How was this missed? I demanded. Lily scanned the earlier reports. The DEP updated its habitat mapping database just last night. The final parcel boundary shifted after new satellite data. Our initial survey used last month's dataset. Marco ran his hand through his hair. That quadrant borders the amphitheater's proposed seating pods. If we can't build there, we have to redesign the foundation layout entirely. Raj tapped his tablet. The environmental assessment could take weeks, months. The city will not resubmit approvals until the DEP signs off. Anger coursed through me. Anger at bureaucratic oversight and at the fickle hand of fate. But beneath it, a resolute calm. I looked at my team. We've faced worse storms. We fix this immediately. I outlined a plan. 1. Emergency Ecological Study *. Commission rapid assessment by a certified wetland specialist. 2. Night Design Contingency *. Sketch alternate layouts relocating seating pods northward, expanding the plaza footprint. 3. Community Transparency *. Draft a public update acknowledging the delay and reaffirming our commitment to environmental stewardship. They sprang into action. By nightfall, phone calls to ecological firms were made, alternative site plans were sketched, and the first draft of a community letter was complete. Alone at my drafting table, I reflected on the day. The soaring victory in arbitration, immediately tempered by an environmental setback. Life had a way of humbling triumph with new trials. My phone buzzed with a message from Marin, the General Tianlai Town Hall at 6 tomorrow. Citizen groups demanding hearing on environmental concerns. Asterisk, asterisk. My pulse quickened. A public hearing? The stakes had never been higher. I took a steadying breath, recalling the first time I stood before friends at Jasper's cottage. Humiliated. Invisible. Now, I would stand before an entire town, not as a punchline, but as a leader, and I would not shrink. The morning of the town hall arrived with crisp autumn air that hinted at both change and challenge. I awoke before dawn, mind stirring with the weight of yesterday's environmental setback. The stop work order for the protected wetland quadrant had struck like an earthquake. No more ground broken until the Department of Environmental Protection completed its assessment, and town leaders had called a public hearing at 6 this evening. The entire project, my vision, now hung in the balance of local sentiment. I dressed in a tailored emerald green dress, symbolic of growth and renewal, and let my auburn hair fall in loose waves. In the kitchen, Ethan was pouring coffee. My worry wiggles like a live thing inside me, I confessed, accepting a steaming mug. He slid his hand across the counter and squeezed mine. You've faced worse. And you've always found a way. I nodded, drawing strength from his confidence. We'll need that ecological study summary, the contingency designs, and a clear message for the community. He offered me a plate of avocado toast, a small comfort, and rose when I set it aside. I'll join you at City Hall at 5. Evenings there can be chaotic. I gave him a quick kiss. Together. By midday, my core team assembled in the loft studio. Lily had preliminary ecological notes from Dr. Meredith Chow, a leading wetland specialist. The protected area was minimal, a 6-foot band along the southern edge. Habitat for the blue-spotted newt, a rare amphibian. The DEP's draft recommendations suggested boardwalk supports to bridge the wetland, mitigating disturbance. Marco had produced revised site plans. Seating pods shifted northward, amphitheater entry reoriented toward the plaza, and a raised boardwalk cameo along the wetlands border. The design maintained capacity and aesthetics while respecting ecology. Raj and I practiced our opening statements. Empathy for environmental preservation paired with urgency for communal benefit. We would propose a joint stewardship plan. The Civic Center would include educational signage about the wetland ecosystem, periodic volunteer-led cleanups, and a habitat monitoring program funded by our firm. I reviewed every slide, memorized key statistics, wetland acreage, newt population range, boardwalk load calculations, until the numbers felt like second nature. At 4:30, Ethan and I drove to City Hall. The grand stone facade glowed in the late afternoon sun, flags snapping overhead. Inside, the echo of our footsteps on marble corridors underscored the gravity of the moment. We passed the rotunda, its dome crowning the Civic Center site in miniature. Council chambers felt both historic and hurried. Wooden pews half-filled with residents, environmental advocates, business leaders, and press corps perched at the back. The dais held the mayor, council members, and the DEP liaison. A projector glowed near the front, ready for my presentation. I touched Ethan's arm. Thank you for coming. He turned, serious. I'm here for you. At 5:50, the mayor brought the meeting to order. Resolved that this hearing addresses the stop work order on the proposed Civic Center project due to newly identified wetland protections, he intoned. We will hear from the project representative, the DEP liaison, and public comment. Please reserve remarks for the allocated time. The DEP liaison, a stern-faced woman in crisp attire, briefed the chamber on the wetland discovery. Her words were factual, lacking emotion but heavy with regulatory tone. Then she concluded, we urge the developer to propose mitigation measures and collaborate on habitat preservation. I stood, smoothing my dress. The chamber quieted. Mayor, council, DEP representatives, and fellow residents, I began, voice steady. My name is Isolde Hawthorne, CEO of Hawthorne & Faber. Thank you for this opportunity. I clicked the remote, and the projector illuminated my title slide. Asterisk, Civic Center and Wetland Coexistence. A Path Forward. Asterisk, asterisk. First, I said, I extend my deep respect for our local ecosystem. This discovery of blue-spotted newt habitat reflects the region's natural richness, a treasure we must protect. Our initial survey used the latest available data, but we fully support DEP's updated mapping. I advanced slides, aerial renderings overlaying wetland boundaries, cross-sections of boardwalk supports, perspective views showing minimal ground disturbance. As a designer, I believe built environments and nature can harmonize. We propose the following measures. 1. Elevated boardwalk installation *, a 6-foot-wide boardwalk spanning the wetlands perimeter, designed as interpretive trail with educational signage highlighting amphibian life cycles and wetland functions. 2. ICHA Habitat Stewardship Program *, an on-site environmental center hosting volunteer habitat monitoring, trash cleanup days, and school eco-tours, funded by a dedicated endowment from Hawthorne and Faber. 3. Native plant restoration *, landscaping with indigenous wetland flora, rushes, sedges, wildflowers, to enhance biodiversity and provide additional breeding grounds for the newts. 4. NIME-SHNIPed construction best practices *, use of captive bolt foundations and seasonal scheduling to avoid breeding seasons, minimizing noise and vibration impact. At each point, I referenced the ecological studies data and Dr. Chow's recommendations. By integrating these measures, we demonstrate that community vibrancy and ecological integrity need not compete. They can coexist, enrich one another, and serve as a model for future developments. I paused, letting the vision sink in. Citizens envisioning boardwalk classes, families discovering salamanders, seniors strolling beneath interpretive signs. A ripple of nods moved through the crowd. Then came public comment. First, a local teacher praised the educational potential. Then an environmental NGO leader offered cautious optimism, but insisted on transparent reporting. A small business owner raised standard concerns about project delays and costs. Finally, a voice I recognized. Marin's voice, cracking with emotion, rose to the microphone. "I'm here as a neighbor and friend," she began. "I've watched Isolde pour her heart into this project, not just as architecture, but as a gift to our town. I believe in her vision, and I believe in our community's capacity to protect our land." She turned to me. "I trust you, Isolde." Murmurs of agreement followed. The human element, the communal bond, underscored my technical arguments. When the mayor returned to the podium, the room braced. After hearing testimony, reviewing the proposed mitigation measures, and consulting with the DEP liaison, this council hereby lifts the stop work order, contingent upon the execution of the stewardship and boardwalk plans as outlined. We commend Hawthorne and Faber's commitment to ecological preservation. Applause erupted. I felt heat flood my cheeks. Ethan gripped my hand, pride shining in his eyes. I stepped forward. "Thank you, Mayor, Council, and DEP. We will dedicate our efforts to ensuring this civic center becomes a living testament to what happens when innovation and nature walk hand in hand." As the chamber emptied, residents approached with handshakes and smiles. Environmental advocates offered collaborative pledges. Reporters jostled for quotes. Marin embraced me in the lobby. "You did it!" I exhaled, relief crashing through me. We did it. Yet as we exited into the cool evening, a lingering tension hummed beneath. The project was back on track, but the path forward would demand unwavering vigilance. I caught Ethan's gaze and knew our greatest achievements would always invite scrutiny, and the next challenge could be just around the corner. But for tonight, under amber street lamps and falling leaves, we celebrated a victory born of dialogue, empathy, and the power of a story reclaimed and reshaped by community. I woke before dawn, the sky still draped in indigo velvet, the hushed world beyond our bedroom window untouched by the events of yesterday. My mind whirred with the echo of the town hall's applause, the DEP's conditional lift of the stop work order still fresh, like a promise freshly etched into the morning air. Yet as I lay beneath the soft covers, I felt the weight of what lay ahead. Breaking ground on the new civic center, overseeing contractors, and keeping every promise to the community, and to myself. A gentle nudge awakened me, Ethan's hand tracing circles on my shoulder. "Morning," he whispered, voice warm with pride. I sat up, gratitude flooding me. "Morning." He reached for his phone. "Your first site inspection starts in an hour. I've arranged for coffee and breakfast burritos." I smiled. Even in this whirlwind of project demands, he steadied me with small kindnesses. I slid from the bed, mind already mapping the tasks of the day: site visit, contractor brief, structural review, budget meeting, community liaison update. Then a midday lunch with Jasper, who wanted to document the groundbreaking in photos for his exhibit, and by evening, a live stream QA with potential donors. I dressed quickly, navy pantsuit, sturdy low heel pumps, and tied my hair into a sleek ponytail. Downstairs in the kitchen, Ethan handed me coffee in a travel mug, wrapped in a leather sleeve, embossed with our initials. "For luck," he said, a teasing glint in his eyes. I kissed his cheek. "I'll need it." Outside, early light stretched across the dewy lawn at the rear of the property. The outline of excavation machinery stood like dormant giants waiting for the signal to awaken. Local contractors milled about, greeting each other with nods and handshakes. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of wet earth and pine. The project manager, Malcolm Reyes, approached with a binder under his arm. His hard hat bobbled as he jogged to meet me. "Morning, Isolde. All crews are ready. We can start excavation right after your inspection." I nodded, scanning the site plan he unrolled. "Let's walk through the perimeter fences, check the erosion controls, verify the staging area for materials." As we circled the site's edge, I observed every detail: the silt fences firmly anchored, the temporary runoff channels directing water into sediment traps, signage marking the protected wetland boundary. The community had entrusted me with more than a building. They'd entrusted me with stewardship of this land. At the staging area, trucks queued for gravel and topsoil deliveries. I approached a driver, exchanged pleasantries, and asked about the delivery schedule. His response was prompt, professional. I jotted notes on my tablet, mentally filing each logistical detail. Next was the wetland boardwalk base supports. I knelt to examine the steel pilings, galvanized, 6 feet apart, installed with minimal disruption. The engineer's calculations had held true. Ground core showed no damage to the underlying root mats. Relief warmed my chest. Malcolm guided me to the heavy equipment lineup: excavators, skid steer loaders, dump trucks. He keyed his radio. "Team, on my mark, we begin." He looked to me. "Ready?" I squared my shoulders. "Let's do this." He nodded and raised his hand. A hydraulic hiss broke the morning calm as the blue and white excavator's arms swung into motion. Enormous bucket teeth bit into soil, lifting swaths of brown earth and revealing layers of clay. The clatter of machinery and distant hum of generators filled the clearing. I held my breath, as though the ground would whisper its approval or dissent. After 10 minutes, Malcolm lowered the arm. "First cut's done, clean and precise." I wiped a smear of mud from my glasses, smiling. "Excellent. Keep this pace, but maintain the buffer zones around the wetland." He saluted, half in jest, half in respect. I spent the next hour inspecting every zone: the amphitheater grading, the civic plaza base compaction, the underground utilities trench. Contractors greeted me with deference, but I treated each with friendly professionalism, knowing that respect on both sides of the blueprint would shape the project's success. By 10, I returned to the site office, a repurposed shipping container outfitted with drafting tables and monitors. Marin was there, her camera rolling for Jasper's series. She captured me reviewing as-built drawings, overlaying changes from yesterday's environmental adjustment. I spoke into the lens, summarizing the morning's progress and reaffirming the project's commitment to sustainability. Marin's steady presence behind the camera transformed my technical jargon into a human narrative, connecting community members watching online to the living document unfolding on the site. After the interview, I convened with the structural engineer, Dr. Kavita Joshi, to finalize load calculations for the cantilevered amphitheater walkway. We pored over computer models, adjusted material strengths, and confirmed the steel beam's grade for both load and deflection tolerances. Each decision balanced safety, cost, and aesthetic grace. At noon, I hosted a working lunch with Ethan and Jim Webster at a nearby cafe. Over salad bowls and iced tea, Jim complimented the project's momentum and hinted at additional seed funding from a philanthropic trust that valued community-driven architecture. Ethan listened quietly, pride evident in his expression. I felt the weight of his silent support as vital as any investor endorsement. Back on site at 2, I led a 3-hour contractor coordination meeting. We resolved scheduling conflicts, confirmed safety protocols for the boardwalk installation, and reviewed quality control checklists. I insisted on daily progress reports and weekly safety audits, processes that felt bureaucratic, but safeguarded the vision from the realities of human error. By 5, the sun dipped low, slanting golden light across freshly turned earth. I summoned the team for a brief progress huddle at the center of the clearing. Today we've broken ground, literally and figuratively. Remember that every shovel of dirt moved is a step toward a new chapter for our community. I raised my travel mug. To integrity, creativity, and partnership. They echoed the sentiment with hammers tapping hard hats and nods of agreement. As evening settled, I prepared for the live stream Q&A. At 7 p.m., I sat before a ring light in the loft, Greg at the helm behind the camera. Questions flooded in. Timing for completion, parking solutions, accessibility concerns, potential expansion phases. I answered each with candor, weaving in project milestones and community involvement calls. Viewers typed hearts and clapping emojis in real time, the digital applause a modern echo of the town hall's standing ovation. When the last question faded, I signed off with a promise. We're building more than a structure, we're building a legacy. Thank you for being part of it. I closed my laptop, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. Ethan appeared at the loft door, silhouetted against the fading light. He held 2 mugs of cocoa and wore a grin that spoke of relief and admiration. "You were incredible today," he said, handing me a warm cup. I wrapped my hands around it. "We were incredible today." He sat beside me, and we watched the site map projected on the loft wall, tiny icons lighting up to mark the day's progress. "Tomorrow, foundations pour," I whispered. "Then walls will rise, and before we know it, the dream becomes reality." He nodded, his gaze soft with love. "And through it all, I'll be right here with you." I leaned into him, feeling the steady hum of possibility. But deep in the back of my mind, a question stirred. Had we truly accounted for every contingency? The world of construction was fickle. Weather delays, supply chain snarls, financial uncertainties. The next challenge could be just as fierce as the last. I closed my eyes, allowing myself a moment of stillness before diving back into the ebb and flow of spreadsheets and site inspections. Because this story, like every great design, was built one detail at a time, and I intended to perfect every single one. The sun had barely risen when I stepped onto the construction site, crisp morning air carrying both promise and peril. The freshly poured foundations gleamed beneath the early light, concrete still damp, as if holding the weight of every decision yet to come. I scanned the horizon, cranes poised like sentinels, scaffolding climbing skyward, and beneath it all, the network of trenches and pilings that formed the Civic Center's skeleton. I inhaled deeply, recalling Ethan's words the night before, "You'll conquer this like you always do." His faith buoyed me, but today's trials would demand more than belief. My phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. "Caught sight of unusual activity near the supply compound. Be careful." Supply compound? The thought jarred me. Our materials had arrived in stages: steel beams, timber, composite panels. But any disruption could derail months of progress. I rounded the corner toward the compound's gated enclosure, where I found a foreman arguing with a delivery driver. The driver's pallet jack leaned against rusted fencing, piles of wood crates behind him. "Isolde!" Malcolm called as he emerged from the site office. "Glad you're here. Our lumber shipment's gone missing." My heart lurched. "Missing?" He nodded. "Checked the inventory. 40 pallets of engineered beams unloaded this morning and they vanished." My mind raced. "Check the cameras," I ordered, "and secure the perimeter." CCTV monitors flickered in the site office. Malcolm fed the footage. A shadowy figure, tall, hooded, stepped behind stacks of crates shortly before dawn, wheeled away 2 pallets on a flatbed dolly, then vanished into the darkness. I pressed my palm to the glass. This isn't random. Someone's sabotaging us. Malcolm met my gaze. "Should we call security?" I shook my head. Not yet. We'll handle this discreetly. I dialed Ethan. He answered on the second ring. What is it? I relayed the theft. Silence crackled. I'll meet you there, he said. I'll bring Jasper. They know the fence. Within 20 minutes, Ethan and Jasper arrived, breath misting in their exhalations. Ethan's brow furrowed. Who would do this? Jasper ran a hand through his hair. There's talk that a rival developer wants to stall the Civic project. They've bid for the same riverfront parcel. My jaw clenched. We need those beams. I have alternative sources, but lead times will push us back weeks. We devised a plan. Jasper would incite rumors that we'd switched to a cheaper local supplier. Ethan and I would inspect the site's perimeter, reinforce security, and Mendoza, our procurement manager, would scramble for emergency stock. Meanwhile, Lily would analyze camera feeds to identify the thief and track the stolen goods. As we spread into action, I felt the familiar surge of purpose. Challenges were threads in the tapestry of leadership, each one an opportunity to reinforce the pattern. Morning became midday as we closed gaps in fencing, relocated remaining materials indoors, and enacted a discreet watch schedule. Yet, as I stepped back to survey the site, my phone buzzed again, a photo from Lily, a stack of our beams loaded onto a flatbed truck at a nearby industrial yard. My chest tightened. There, I pointed to the blurred plate. Call the city patrol. They'll recognize that truck. Moments later, a distant siren's wail spiraled across the lot. We watched as lights painted the cranes in red and blue. The truck slowed, then halted, its driver under scrutiny as police approached. I exhaled, relief tempered by urgency. Secure those pallets. Ethan jogged toward the truck. Jasper followed, camera in hand to document the recovery. I approached Malcolm. Inform the crew, resume deliveries, and bump today's schedule. Shift work into evenings if necessary. We can't lose momentum. He nodded, already sending messages. At dusk, as the furnaces of construction cooled, I convened my team at the edge of the site by the wetland boardwalk. The sky was lavender and rose, clouds catching the sun's last rays. I know today felt like an ambush, I began, voice carrying across the hush. But you responded with agility, collaboration, and resolve. That's what makes a team and a leader impenetrable. They listened, shoulders straight, eyes committed. We'll fortify our supply chain, enhance on-site security, and keep our lines of communication open with law enforcement. And we will build this center, regardless of the obstacles. A chorus of agreements rose. As I looked toward the emerging framework, the steel skeleton reaching skyward, I felt a pulse of exhilaration. Each beam recovered, each foundation poured, each challenge overcome, wove new strength into the structure. Later that night, I stood alone at the terrace window of our home, gazing at the city's lights blinking against the velvet sky. Ethan joined me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. You did good today, he said softly. I leaned into him. We did good. He kissed my temple. What's next? I considered the horizon, where cranes dotted the silhouette. Tomorrow, we sign the final financing agreement if we clear another hurdle. He chuckled. When is there not another hurdle? I smiled, eyes glinting. True, but hurdles are what get me out of bed. I pressed my forehead to his, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Tonight, let's rest. Tomorrow, we write the next chapter. And as the city whispered around us, illuminated by street lamps and starlight, I knew our story, Isolde Hawthorne's story, was far from over. The dawn light filtered through the construction site like a promise. 17 months since that fateful party at Riverside Cottage, and here we were, standing on the cusp of completion. I, Isolde Hawthorne, watched the last steel beams being lowered into place, the articulated glass facade reflecting the pastel sky. Every rivet, weld, and pane bore the imprint of our journey, the sweat of late-night revisions, the tears of setbacks, and the laughter of shared victories. Ethan joined me at the perimeter fencing, his hand warm in mine. Today's the day, he murmured, reading the unspoken question in my gaze. Would it all come together? I drew in a steady breath and stepped forward. Let's see. The site hummed with activity. Workers tightened final bolts, electricians tested lighting circuits, and artisans affixed interpretive signage along the elevated boardwalk. Malcolm approached, clipboard in hand. All tests passed. Wind load, waterproofing, accessibility compliance. You have a green light. I nodded, relief blooming in my chest. Thank you. I want to walk through before the opening ceremony. We began at the Grand Plaza, where the fountain's gentle cascade glistened in the morning sun. The air carried the scent of new cedar benches and the soft tinkle of water. Families would gather here, artists would display public sculptures, markets would spring to life on weekends. I paused, closing my eyes, picturing the first laughter echoing against the fountain's spray. From there, we moved to the amphitheater. The crescent seating framed the stage where local talent would perform. Beneath us, the detention basin, now a sculptural water feature, captured rainwater, looping it back into the landscaping system. The crowd seating measured exactly as I'd calculated months ago, offering perfect sightlines for every seat. Our footsteps carried us to the wetland boardwalk. Interpretive plaques detailed the blue-spotted newt's life cycle, while discreet foundations ensured no harm to the delicate ecosystem. I knelt beside the marsh rushes and breathed, gratitude swelling at every green shoot. Finally, we entered the Civic Center's interior, a soaring atrium bathed in natural light from the skylights. Warm wood panels alternated with translucent glass, creating a rhythm of openness and privacy. I passed the community meeting rooms lined with acoustic panels in shades of cornflower blue, the children's play area furnished with sensory-rich modules, and the gallery space showcasing Jasper's latest photography. At the end of the tour, I faced Ethan. We stood amidst the empty corridors, the echoes of our footsteps, a prelude to the vibrancy soon to fill these walls. He took both my hands. You did this. I let my breath catch. We did this. Behind us, the site manager flicked a switch. Soft chimes filled the hall as the official timepiece in the atrium began its countdown to the opening ceremony. 1 hour. As I straightened, adrenaline surging, I recalled every obstacle: the humiliating toast, the boardroom coup, the security breach, the wetlands scandal, the sabotage, and how each had forged me into the leader I was today. The final challenge remained, unveiling this masterpiece to the world. In exactly 60 minutes, doors would open, and the public would step inside. I inhaled, tasting the moment. This was more than a building. It was a testament to resilience, partnership, and the power of owning one's story. Ethan squeezed my hand. Ready? I squared my shoulders, offering a confident smile. More than ever. As the countdown clock chimed, I stepped toward the grand entrance, prepared to lead in triumph and face whatever the next chapter would hold. Dawn's golden veil fell upon the construction site like a benediction. I arrived before the first work crew, eager to witness a day unmarred by sabotage or regulatory snares. Yet, even as the site hummed to life, with the hum of generators, the clank of steel, and the murmur of contractors exchanging morning greetings, I sensed the undercurrent of anticipation. Today marked the groundbreaking of the Civic Center's final structural feature, the signature glass atrium dome. Its curved panels would crown the building, channeling sunlight into the central atrium and symbolizing transparency, the guiding ethos of this entire project. But dome installations were notoriously complex, requiring flawless coordination between crane operators, riggers, and glazing specialists. I found Malcolm reviewing the installation plan beneath the partially assembled dome frame. He pointed upward, where steel ribs arced like the ribs of an ancient beast. Once the glazing truck arrives, we'll hoist each panel into place. Timing and precision are everything. I nodded, scanning the sky for any sign of rain or gusts. Weather could turn this delicate ballet into chaos. At 9 sharp, the specialized truck rolled in, loaded with custom-fabricated glass panels secured in A-frames. Each bore the etched signature of the manufacturer, a mark of authenticity. Ethan, standing beside me, clicked his tongue appreciatively. Everything looks perfect. A hush fell as forklift operators guided the A-frames to the crane's staging area. The operator, seasoned and focused, signaled his team. Radio crackled with their coordinated instructions. Panel 1, locked on the hook, the rigger called, a soft beep. Then the panel lifted, gleaming in the morning sun. I felt the collective breath of the crew as the glass arced upward, following the crane's boom. The panel rotated into position, guided by lines and pulleys until it nestled precisely between the steel ribs. Technicians bolted it into place. A cheer rose from the ground. The first panel set the tone. Each subsequent piece slid into alignment smoothly, the dome's geometry emerging like a crystalline shell. As the fifth panel clicked home, my phone buzzed with an alert. Invitation Award Ceremony, Allied Architects Guild. They wanted to honor the project for excellence in sustainable design. My chest swelled. Recognition from peers that validated every risk, every sleepless night. I tucked the invitation into my pocket and refocused on the dome. 18 panels to go. By midday, half the dome was complete. Workers paused for a hydration break, and I joined them, handing out bottled water and cold towels. Their gratitude was genuine. I felt the bond deepen between us. Isolde, the next panel's glass has a minor seal defect, Lily reported, voice low. The gasket's not seating properly. If we install it like this, we risk leaks and stress cracks. My heart tightened. One faulty panel could compromise the entire dome or require costly rework. I frowned. Hold installation. Let's remove that panel and replace it with the spare, and send this batch back for remediation. Malcolm nodded. On it. Within an hour, the defective panel was swapped. Though the replacement meant a brief pause, the crew's professionalism and the clear directive steadied morale. By mid-afternoon, the final panel hovered like a celestial puzzle piece. The crane operator and riggers exchanged signals. Time slowed. The panel lifted. I held my breath as it glided along cables, guided into the dome's crown by skilled hands. As the bolts aligned, the panel settled with a soft click that sounded like destiny fulfilled. Silence reigned for a heartbeat. Then a roar of applause reverberated against the half-finished walls. Workers cheered, horns honked. Celebration blossomed amid steel and glass. I felt Ethan's hand at my back. You did it, he whispered. I turned, eyes bright. No, we did it. The finished dome shimmered overhead, a mosaic of light and reflection. In that moment, I understood the profound meaning. A transparent roof through which the sky itself became part of the building, a metaphor for the journey we'd shared. That night, as we prepared for the award ceremony, the first official recognition of our work, I sat in the loft, reviewing my acceptance speech. I planned to acknowledge every person who had contributed. My board, my team, my husband, and the community whose trust shaped every decision. My phone buzzed again, a video link from the mayor's office. I opened it to see the mayor smiling. Isolde, he said, voice warm. On behalf of the town, I want to invite you to dedicate the atrium dome tomorrow. It's time to celebrate our partnership. I felt a surge of emotion. Thank you, it will be an honor. He nodded. See you at 10. I closed the laptop, heart full. Each challenge, public humiliation, boardroom battles, environmental hurdles, sabotage, had led to this luminous moment. Tomorrow, beneath a dome of light, we would honor the power of resilience, collaboration, and the courage to reclaim one's own story. And so, I prepared to step into the glow of our collective triumph, ready for whatever the next chapter would bring. The morning sun filtered through the city's skyline as I stepped onto the plaza with Mayor Caldwell, the ribbon, woven from the town's official colors, waiting taut between two ornate stanchions. Crowds clustered behind the barricades. Local officials, press photographers, families who had watched sketches and renderings transform into living spaces. My heart thrummed with anticipation, each beat echoing the journey from Riverside Cottage's humiliating joke to this moment of communal triumph. Mayor Caldwell leaned in, whispering, "Ready, Miss Hawthorne?" I nodded, smoothing my navy blazer. Let's do this." At his signal, we severed the ribbon together, and applause erupted into a roar. Children streamed across the threshold to test benches and interactive water features. A band struck up the town anthem, and I watched, breath caught, as my childhood friend Sarah led the first tour group under the glass atrium dome. I paused, scanning the faces around me. Marlena from the Environmental Council examining the boardwalk supports. Jasper capturing candid shots for his next exhibit. Ethan standing beside me, his eyes bright with pride. My chest swelled. That afternoon, the press kits were distributed. High-resolution photos, site plans, interviews with community leaders, and quotes from residents already making plans for future events. I retreated briefly to the Senior Center wing, where a group of retirees had claimed the morning's first craft workshop. Their chatter filled the air with warmth. One woman, Mrs. Langley, beckoned me over. "My dear, thank you for restoring this place," she said, her voice quavering with gratitude. "You've given us back our town square." I clasped her hands. "Thank you for trusting in this vision." Later, in my temporary office, a glass-walled conference room overlooking the wetland marsh, I reviewed the schedule for the plaque dedication. At 2:00, I would sign a commemorative marker and present it to the town historian. At 4, the children's choir would perform under the dome. But the day's final event loomed largest in my mind: the gala reception in the evening, where the Allied Architects Guild would present me with the Excellence in Sustainable Design Award. I had prepared my acceptance speech, focusing on collaboration, resilience, and narrative ownership. As the afternoon waned, my phone buzzed. An urgent notification from our cybersecurity team. Anomalous access attempts targeting our project portal. My pulse quickened. I tapped into the dashboard. Multiple failed logins at 3:45 p.m., a successful access at 3:52 p.m. from an unrecognized device, downloading grant documents and budget spreadsheets. My breath caught. Even in celebration, the shadow of intrusion returned. I updated the security protocols and locked down the portal, but I sensed a deeper threat. Someone was fishing for financial vulnerabilities. I closed the laptop and leaned back, reminding myself that vigilance must accompany triumph. Slipping the device into my bag, I joined Ethan at a small private terrace where the award committee awaited. He caught my eye. "You okay?" I managed a smile. "Just a reminder to never let your guard down." He squeezed my hand. "You've earned every moment today." At 7, the gala filled the atrium. Crystal chandeliers reflecting off the glass dome. Guests in evening attire conversing softly over past hors d'oeuvre. The mayor introduced me to the podium beneath a spotlight of natural light. I stepped forward, clearing my throat. "Thank you to the Allied Architects Guild, to Mayor Caldwell, to the citizens of Riverton. Tonight, we honor not just a building, but the spirit that built it. Perseverance, partnership, and the courage to shape one's own narrative." Applause swelled. As I concluded, this award belongs to every hand that swung a hammer, every mind that crafted a plan, every voice that spoke up in meetings, and every friend who reminded me who I am. I scanned the crowd, spotting faces lit with emotion. The award came down to me, a crystal prism etched with the project's silhouette. I held it aloft, light refracting into rainbows around the dome. But in that moment of triumph, my phone buzzed once more. A single message. "Check the ledger." My breath caught. I excused myself and slipped into the corridor, opening the bank portal on my phone. My eyes widened. An unexpected wire transfer. One of our major funders, Horizon Trust, had withdrawn their remaining endowment, citing, quote, "internal realignment." My chest tightened. Horizon's funds had been earmarked for the Community Outreach Center section, programs for youth, art workshops, senior classes. Without it, that wing could stall. I closed the phone, shoulders squared. Challenges had shaped every chapter of this story. I stepped back into the gala, lifted the crystal prism, and raised my voice once more. Every story has its hurdles. And every hurdle is an opportunity to write the next chapter. The gallery held their breath as I met Ethan's gaze. Solemn promise that our journey, and my narrative, was far from over. The morning sun filtered through our bedroom curtains, casting a warm glow across the scattered drafts of donor letters and financial projections on the bedside table. I awoke to Ethan's steady breathing beside me, the weight of last night's revelation pressing heavily on my chest. Horizon Trust's abrupt withdrawal of their endowment threatened the outreach wing, the very heart of our community mission. My gaze flicked to the clock. 6:15 a.m. There was no time to waste. I slipped out of bed and made my way to the home office, where my laptop and a half-finished cup of cold coffee awaited. The glow of the screen illuminated the urgent email from our CFO, Shames Asterisk. We must replace $2.5 million in funding by Friday, or pause program development. Asterisk. Pause the program. The idea felt like a betrayal of every promise I'd made to families, seniors, and schoolchildren who had already counted on our workshops, exhibits, and community gatherings. I opened a blank document and began drafting a rallying message for potential backers, appeals to local philanthropists, regional foundations, and corporate sponsors aligned with civic and educational values. Each sentence was a call to arms. Join us in completing a living legacy that empowers every generation. Asterisk, I paused, fingers hovering over the keys. Words alone couldn't bridge a multi-million-dollar gap. Just then, Ethan entered with fresh coffee. He settled beside me, concern etched in his features. "Morning," he said softly. I rubbed my temples. "We need a miracle." He poured coffee into my mug. "Or a plan." His steady pragmatism grounded me. "Okay, plan." I outlined our options. Apply for an emergency municipal grant, launch a crowdsourced funding campaign, negotiate a bridge loan with our banking partner, or find a single lead donor to replace Horizon Trust's commitment. Each route had trade-offs, timelines, interest costs, reputational risks. But we couldn't afford indecision. Ethan listened, nodding. "I'll handle the bridge loan discussions with our bank. You focus on securing a lead donor. I know a few folks who might be interested in this kind of civic initiative." I swallowed, steeling myself. Deal. By 8 a.m. I arrived at the city's Community Foundation offices, a modest brick building buzzing with early arrivals. I stepped inside the foyer, where framed photos showcased past grant recipients, after-school programs, public art installations, educational nonprofits. I checked in at the desk. Asterisk, meeting with the grants committee at 9, asterisk. In the waiting area, I reviewed my case. Impact metrics from last week's outreach event. Over 200 participants, 95% positive feedback, 15 local media mentions, demographic breakdowns showing underrepresented neighborhoods, testimonials from seniors and teachers praising hands-on ecological workshops. Data and emotion. I needed both. At exactly 9, the committee members filed in. 5 board members in crisp suits, their expressions polite but unreadable. I rose, introduced myself, and launched into my presentation. Asterisk, Hawthorne and Faber's Civic Center Outreach Wing, a catalyst for community engagement. Asterisk. Slides showed smiling children in VR wetlands tours, seniors painting alongside local artists, families attending public forums under our glass atrium dome. I spoke with passion, then transitioned to the financial ask. 15 $2.5 million over 2 years, structured as an endowment to fund annual program cycles, with naming opportunity for the Foundation's Educational Center. Asterisk. Questions followed. Metrics on long-term sustainability. Governance structure for the endowment. Reporting frameworks to ensure transparency. I answered each with clarity. Project governance chart, audited financial projections, biannual impact reports. By the end, the committee chair leaned forward. "Ms. Hawthorne, your vision aligns with our mission," she said. "We're prepared to recommend a $1 million award, contingent on matching funds raised by your organization by December." My pulse quickened. It wasn't the full amount, but it was a critical lifeline. "Thank you," I said, voice steady. "We'll secure the balance." I left the Foundation's offices energized. The first step of our funding triage complete. Next, find a lead donor for the remaining $1.5 million. Back at the loft, I convened my team. We have a $1 million bridge grant from the foundation, but we still need $1.5 million. We're launching a high-level donor campaign. Ideas? Marin suggested crowdsource premium packages, private tours, named scholarships, while Marco recommended pitching local corporate partners whose CSR mandates included education and environment. Raj offered to help with targeted outreach lists. We drafted a donor prospectus, sleek and emotive, and divided tasks. That evening, Ethan took me to a dinner meeting with the Blake family, longtime community patrons and founders of a regional tech firm. Over roasted salmon and crisp white wine, I presented our project's impact and financial needs. Mrs. Blake listened intently, her eyes reflecting the candlelight. When I finished, there was a pause so full of tension I could hear my own heartbeat. Finally, Mr. Blake spoke. Isolde, we believe in community innovation. My wife and I will commit $750,000, with an option to increase based on enrollment metrics next year. Relief and gratitude flooded me. Thank you. This means everything to our community, and to me. He smiled. We're invested in your story. That night, back at home, I exhaled deeply. We had $1 million from the foundation and $750,000 from the Blakes. Only $750,000 remained. The gap was smaller but still daunting. Ethan wrapped his arms around me. One more push. I leaned into him. One more push. As I drifted to sleep, I drafted the final donor email. Asterisk. Join us in completing a legacy that stands for education, environment, and empowerment. Asterisk, asterisk. Tomorrow, we would make our final ask and prepare for the grand opening, just days away. And whatever the outcome, our story would continue, a testament to every challenge overcome and every chapter still to come. The dawn chorus of city traffic and bird calls mingled outside my bedroom window as I lay awake, the soft glow of my phone illuminating the stack of unopened messages on the screen. This was it, opening day. The day I had dreamed of since that fateful evening at Riverside Cottage, when laughter had pierced my pride. 20 months and 20 tumultuous chapters of blood, sweat, and tears had led to this morning's horizon. I slid out of bed with a quiet determination, muscles humming from weeks of early mornings and late nights. Ethan's steady silhouette emerged from the hallway as I crossed into the suite's bathroom. "Morning," he whispered, pouring us each a cup of Earl Grey. I accepted the mug with a grateful nod. "Morning. Thank you for staying up with me until 2 a.m. going over those opening day scripts." His warm hand brushed mine. I wouldn't be anywhere else. I took a sip, the bergamot lifting my spirits even as nerves danced in my stomach. Today, I'll give 3 speeches, tour the site with the mayor, and then cut the ribbon. After that, there's a press conference and a community festival in the plaza. And then we begin the real work of programming. Ethan chuckled softly. Only you would call the real work the part after the confetti. I smiled, setting down the cup. It never ends. By 7, I was in my navy pantsuit once more, hair in its familiar ponytail and a fresh line of coral lip gloss to bolster confidence. The loft team met me in the gallery space, now transformed into a command center. Monitors streaming live CCTV from the site, phones lined up for donor callbacks, and a final printed list of VIP attendees, elected officials, benefactors, community leaders, and press. Lily reported the weather. Clear skies, light breeze. Marco confirmed final AV checks. Raj updated social media feeds to reflect the Hawthorne and Faber Civic Center grand opening hashtag. Marin held 2 steaming matching mugs. "Fuel," she said. I took a sip, feeling the warmth anchor me. "Thank you, let's do this." At 8 a.m. the motorcade rolled into the secure rear lot. I climbed into the lead SUV with Mayor Caldwell and Ethan, waving to families lining the barricades. Children held handmade signs. Asterisk, welcome, Isolde, asterisk. Thank you for our new home. Asterisk. My heart swelled. We entered through the service entrance beneath the atrium. I stepped onto the freshly polished terrazzo floor. Its inlaid compass rose pointing north. Above, the glass dome arched into the sky like a crystalline cathedral. The mayor tapped his watch. "We go live in 2 minutes." I squared my shoulders and looked out at the throng beyond the glass walls. Hundreds of residents, volunteers, artists, students in school uniforms. The plaza was festooned with bunting in town colors. Vendors' tents smelled of kettle corn and fresh lemonade, and a local folk band tuned guitars. Then the MC's voice came through the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Hawthorne and Faber, Isolde Hawthorne." I stepped to the lectern in the plaza center, the sun casting my shadow long across the paving stones. I inhaled, letting the energy of the crowd fill me. "Good morning, Riverton," I began, voice carrying across the plaza. "Today, we stand not only before a building, but before a bold vision. A place where every voice finds a home, where art and ecology nourish one another, and where community isn't just a word. It's a living, breathing reality." The crowd cheered. I paused, letting the applause rain down. "When we broke ground 20 months ago," I continued, "few could have predicted the storms we would face. Public humiliation, corporate sabotage, environmental hurdles, funding crises. Yet each challenge refined our resolve, each setback taught us collaboration." I glanced at Ethan, whose proud smile steadied me. But every obstacle was an invitation to write our own story. To prove that when you refuse to be defined by others, when you refuse to let your narrative be stolen, you become the author of your destiny. This civic center belongs to you. The teachers, students, seniors, families, and friends who invested hope in every brick, every pane of glass, every boardwalk plank. I swept my arm across the facade. Today, we open our doors. May these halls echo with laughter, learning, and creativity for generations to come. With the mayor at my side, I severed the ceremonial ribbon. A collective cheer exploded as children rushed forward, exploring benches and fountains. Confetti cannons boomed, showering the plaza in streamers of blue and gold. The mood shifted to jubilant celebration. I exchanged embraces with the mayor and council members, then led a guided tour, the amphitheater stage, where local musicians would perform this evening, the gallery hall, where Jasper's photographs captured the community's spirit, the outreach wing, now lined with informational kiosks for upcoming workshops. At 10, a press conference convened beneath the atrium. Reporters lobbed questions about design inspiration, sustainability features, and future programming. I answered each with the practiced candor we had honed over months of interviews. By noon, the vendors were selling out of food, children played in the interactive water features, and volunteers led tours along the Newt Habitat Boardwalk. I paused, watching a group of schoolchildren sketch the marsh through their notebooks, their teacher urging them to notice details. It struck me then, this was the culmination of every sketch, every pixel, every steel beam, a living testament to community-driven design. As afternoon light slanted through the atrium dome, I guided Ethan to a quiet balcony overlooking the river. Below, the festival hummed. Beyond, cranes stood silent sentinel over the final construction phases. He handed me a glass of sparkling cider. "To you." I raised the glass. "To us." We sipped, the bubbles tickling our senses. He smiled. "What's next?" I set down the glass, wrapping my arms around his waist. "Programming. We build the story inside these walls now. Art exhibits, town halls, classes, celebrations. This isn't the end. It's the prologue to all the lives that will unfold here." He kissed my temple. "And I'll be here every step." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, I stepped back into the atrium, letting the last rays of daylight glint off the glass dome. I watched families streaming out of the Newt Trail, artists setting up easels, and volunteers marking up schedules for next week's workshops. In that golden hour, I felt the weight of triumph and the thrill of possibility intertwine. And as the evening lights flickered on, casting the Civic Center in a warm embrace, I remembered the final promise I'd make. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. With that, my own narrative pivoted from past to future, one chapter closed, countless others waiting to be told.